Welcome back to Calculated Risk. I am Tyler Shoemaker, joined as always by KFord. Had another great weekend of college football, a full Saturday. My team didn't play yesterday. Our team didn't play yesterday, Kelley. So much less stressful in my house on those bye weeks, and really got to just kind of flip around and watch a bunch of football. How about you?
Yeah, same. Yeah, Tyler. When your team's not playing or after your team has won on a college football Saturday, the Saturday becomes much more enjoyable. I actually had that thought while watching the LSU Ole Miss game. I was sitting there getting a little nostalgic about the SEC on CBS. We know it's going away next year. And I was like, man, I'm really enjoying this game. It's just like, I don't have a dog. It's just, I just like it. What's going on? And I was like, oh, wait, Ohio State's not even playing today. I'm not worried about that. I'm not stressing about it. I'm just enjoying the college football game. So yes, Tyler, I agree with you 100%. I was in that same boat. It was a great day of college football. Each of the windows had at least a game that really had me on the edge of my seat. Notre Dame Duke in the evening was awesome as well. Capped off with Alabama looking more like Alabama to end the night. So it was a fun day of college football, and the best news is we get to do it again in just a couple days. So.
Yeah. This week, I love once we get into October and we start getting a bunch of these midweek games. We got some Wednesday games this week, and then soon enough we'll have some Tuesday night action as well. So it's like it's nonstop. So I love it. So throughout the season so far, we've done our biggest upgrades and downgrades for this Monday show. Now that we're some teams are at the midway point of their season, we're gonna cut that out as teams aren't drastically moving up and down as they were early in the season for us. So what we're going to do on the show is just post our updated top 30 of our power rating and just kind of go through and give our thoughts on where teams are and where we see teams maybe going for the rest of the season. So if you're watching on YouTube, Kelley's gonna put up the graphics for my top 30 and his top 30. And I think for this exercise, I think it probably will be fun and entertaining. I'll look at your top 30 here and kind of call out anything, and then vice versa, and we can go from there. But looking at your top 30, Kelley, Oklahoma up to number 2 for you. They've been my number 1 here for quite a while, and it looks like they're slowly but surely climbing up the KFord ratings as well. Georgia dropped. They dropped for me as well. I mean, they're kind of in a free fall here for me. Obviously, even though they won the game, basically my ratings after that game thought that Auburn was the better team for that game in terms of their game grade. So that was an interesting data point for Georgia, who to this point I don't think has looked dominant. We talked about that last week. Michigan climbing for you as they did for me. So that's that was good to see them kind of put together a nice performance against Nebraska. And then looking through the rest here, nothing else really jumps out. You've got Maryland in your top 30. They're just outside my top 30. That's they play at Ohio State this week, so that'll be something to keep an eye on. I saw a stat that Ohio State opens the season with 5 straight undefeated opponents for the first time since like the 1930s. So that's kind of absurd. No, Kelley, what are your thoughts on my top 30? Obviously, we've got some discrepancy here as we've talked about every week, the reasons why, but what jumps out to you?
Yeah, you touched on a lot of things there, Tyler. Start with Oklahoma. They're your number 1. Not necessarily that they're your number 1 or my number 2. We both have Oklahoma favored here on a neutral site game in the Red River Shootout against Texas this upcoming weekend. I know Texas opened 5.5, something like that. I don't even know where it is right now at time of recording, but Texas opened as the favorite. My numbers make it about Oklahoma minus 1.5. It looks like your numbers actually make it closer to, what is that, Tyler? Oklahoma minus 8? Is that where your numbers are? So you're even bigger on Oklahoma than I am in that game. Hey, listen, eye test wise, which almost makes me cringe just saying it, but like in terms of watching these teams, I kind of think in my heart Texas is going to win the game. My numbers are saying something different, which is okay, and we don't always have to go with the numbers. It's 1.5 points is what mine make it. I'm cool with that. Seeing yours at 8 is interesting to me, and again, I'm not saying that it's wrong because my numbers say Oklahoma too. So that's what stands out to me right away. Oklahoma, not that they're number 1 because they're my number 2. It's that they're number 1 by such a large margin. Tyler, you got them number 1 by just over 5 points over Oregon, who I now have having the top 5 as well. What stands out to me though, dude, I'm going down your first column, your top 10. Oh, like, okay, looks good. Yep, I got you. I get to the bottom, I see Duke. Duke's number 10 for you in the power ratings. They are up for me, despite the loss to Notre Dame. They are up to number 22 for me. But you got a number 10, so you're loving you some Duke Blue Devils.
Yeah, and that was another team that, despite losing their game, actually came out with a higher game grade than Notre Dame. So if those two teams played again tomorrow, I would have Duke favored by about home field advantage there. So by about 2.5 points. So my numbers really like Duke. Obviously, the thing here to keep in mind with Duke as well, they beat Clemson down in week 1. Clemson looked pretty good. They got 2 early touchdowns kind of handed to them by Syracuse. But after that, I really thought Cade Klubnik looked good for Clemson yesterday. Finally got the receivers going a little bit. They looked very good in a game that I had Syracuse favored in that. That was kind of one of those games where my number and the odds makers had a huge discrepancy. It didn't work out for me in that instance, of course. But so Duke absorbing some Clemson juice here as well, because Clemson's back up. They had fallen out of my top 25. Now they're firmly in the top 20 now. So Duke kind of absorbing that juice there as well. That jumped out to me when once the formula stopped running and I saw what it spit out. Duke definitely jumped off the page at me as well.
I think the only other one for me, Tyler, that I see, and you touched on it, is the only other big one, at least in the top 20, because once you get past 20, we're going to have some discrepancies, of course. Georgia, and you touched on it. You said they're free falling. Yeah, dude, I'd say so. And they're down for me a lot. I mean, for the season, Georgia is down a touchdown for me. 7 points from the beginning of the year, preseason to now. That's 5th most nationally in terms of downgrades. Only Baylor, North Texas, Pitt, and Southern Miss have been downgraded more than Georgia. But I still have Georgia number 7. That goes to show where they were heading to start the year. You've got them at 17. So you've got Georgia way down there. And again, part of that makes sense because we know you phase out your preseason priors faster than I do. And the in-season data certainly hasn't been up to the standard or the bar of the preseason component for Georgia for either of us. So it makes sense. But yeah, it's just, I'm looking at yours and you asked me what stands out. Duke at 10, Georgia at 17. I'm not saying you're wrong by any means. That's what stands out to me. It's interesting.
Yeah, no, it is. It's crazy. And it's, again, like we were talking about before recording here, it's like when my motto gives me those type of numbers, like it makes me uncomfortable sometimes going into the week. Cause it's like, totally. I have such a huge discrepancy, from odds makers going into a week. And like I pointed out, there's pros and cons to doing it the way I do it. However, I will say from a betting standpoint, which is, the basis of my motto is to try to get an edge on odds makers. I mean, let me just read this. I tweeted it earlier Sunday afternoon. For week 5, TSI finished 128, 93, and 7 on every side in total in FBS and FCS. And that was a great week for the model. Last week, it was over 60% on all FBS games. So it's doing something right. But obviously again, like I mentioned, we're trying to catch lightning in a bottle. So sometimes you get a Syracuse that I have favored by 5 points and they, get waxed by Clemson. That's going to happen. But you're also going to have a lot of like Bowling Green. Bowling Green was one of my best bets this week, plus 22.5, and they win the game outright by double digits. So that, sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But it looks like here, at least through 5.5 weeks of the season, the TSI way of doing things has gotten an edge from a betting perspective. Maybe not so much in terms of the absolute error, which is what Kelley's goal is. So again, we'll continue to touch on that just to emphasize the point that like neither one of us do it right or wrong. We just do it differently and are trying to achieve slightly different things with our exercise. And that's what makes it fun. So, you look at these graphics and I've got a Duke in the top 10, Duke's 22 for Kelley. So like both models respect Duke.
Yeah, it's still really good. It's still really good for Duke. I mean, either way, top 25 Duke. Come on now. That's really good when we're talking, Duke football. This isn't basketball over here.
Yeah. Yeah. So that is just one of those funny things about the way it works out sometimes. Anything else in terms of our power rating, Kelley, or anything that you noticed watching the games or anything with your numbers this week that you thought was noteworthy?
Yeah, just I guess more focus on mine now than reacting to yours. For me, you say it makes you nervous sometimes when you're so far off from Vegas. And again, you use that to your advantage and you like those spots too for betting purposes. I'll say when I get nervous is when I'm like pretty far off from Bill Connolly or Brian Fremeau. And so Bill's had, Michigan number 1 now for a couple of weeks. And I'm over here like, oh man, I got him number 12. I got him number 12 again. I'm like, what's going on here? Michigan to me is now up to number 8. They looked really good against Nebraska. So again, some people are going to say, how do you have Michigan number 8? Like Bill's got him number 1. I understand. That's not the same model. I mean, we're trying to achieve, the same thing here, but it's not the same model. So I'm a little bit closer now with Bill on Michigan, which again, it's not like I'm going to make manual adjustments to match Bill, but SP plus, FEI, like they're the gold standards. I've said that over and over, and I believe that to be true. And so when my numbers deviate from those, I seek to understand why. And I think I know for Michigan, they literally have not until this weekend pulled away early in a game from any teams. And my model really, the bar is high. When you're a top team, the bar is really high. And what we're seeing this year is maybe there actually aren't too many top teams. I actually tweeted this on Sunday. I said the last time that the number 1 team in the KFord power ratings had a rating of 26.1 or worse. That's what Ohio State's is right now. For those that are seeing the graphic, you can see that. For those that are on listening, Ohio State's power rating right now is 26.1. That's number 1 nationally. The last time that the number 1 power rated team in my model's history was 26.1 or worse was 2007, Tyler. And we remember how crazy 2007 was with all the things that happened that year. There was no dominant team that year. Teams picking up losses along the way. LSU won the national championship with 2 losses on their resume. Like that year was crazy. And it's my favorite year of college football ever. That's the last time we had a team number 1 that had a power rating of 26.1 or worse. So the point in saying that is we don't have a dominant team or teams. We've had that every year of the CFP, whether it's Alabama or Clemson or Georgia most recently. A team or teams have been dominant, have been the clear favorites against the field. That doesn't mean they always win, but they've been the clear favorites against the field. We just don't have that this year. And so while I have Michigan number 8 right now, they're still only, 4.5 points away, 5 points away from Ohio State at number 1. And the reason that no one's really pulled away is Michigan's a good example of this. They failed to just like dominate a team from start to finish consistently. They did it against Nebraska for sure. And they ended up winning by comfortable margins in each of their first 4 games, talking about the Wolverines here. But it took them a while to do that. And when my model views you as a top team and you're playing inferior opponents, which to this point Michigan has, it expects you to put that game away probably quicker than most fans would expect you to. If you do, you'll maintain your rating or it'll rise. If you don't and you still win, even if it's comfortably, your rating will fall. And that's what we've seen with Michigan to this point. They rose this week, though, because they put Nebraska on skates and they made them look pretty bad from the jump. So that is one that I've been keeping an eye on now because it's been brought to my attention that other power ratings have Michigan higher than I do, that I'm kind of tracking on just a little bit extra. But they're up to number 8 for me. No real surprises in my top 10. I don't think Washington, a team that I was really, really impressed by, struggled a little bit this week against Arizona. They ended up getting the win, but they're down to number 10 in the power ratings. I already talked about Georgia's down to number 7. USC continues to fall. I now have them number 12. A Colorado team is, I got them power rated somewhere around number 60, and it was a game at the end. It looked like they were going to pull away, and then they didn't. And so USC continues to fall for me, but not too many surprises based on what I was expecting for the top 30 this week.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. One team that, as I'm kind of like watching the score of their game and seeing how that game's going and thinking like maybe how the model's going to view it, like I thought Oregon might jump up this week for me, and they actually didn't. They actually decreased their rating by 2 points this week. And again, it's not all about the game they played. It's about everyone they've played and how that all, comes together behind the scenes. But that was something that kind of surprised me because Oregon, although it was tight, like early in the game,
took them a while to get going. It took them a while to get going on that game.
They obviously, hit the gas and didn't look back. So that was something that kind of surprised me when I saw their rating decrease this week. But again, it's more than just the Stanford game that plays into it. But Ohio State on an off week decreased their rating. Youngstown State, who had been pretty well respected in my model as an FCS team, lost a shootout to it's escaping me. They lost like a 44-41 shootout. So, that kind of hurt Ohio State. That Youngstown State lost to an FCS team. So, things like that, it all comes together. Everything that's happened in the past, the teams you played in the past, how they continue to perform impacts your rating, as Ohio State found out this week.
Tyler, a Florida State fan got at you. Talk about a team going down when they didn't play, and you give reasons why. A Florida State fan got after me on Twitter on Sunday and was like, your ranking, or I think he said, your rankings are trash when a team goes down and they didn't even play or something like that. And I was like, I just didn't respond, but someone else responded for me and kind of explained the situation. But I was just like, okay, one, bro, you went down 0.7 points. You went down half a point. Like, let's not overreact. You didn't go down. You didn't even drop in the the corresponding ranking. You're still number 9. You didn't drop in that part at all. Your rating did go down, and here's why. And someone else proceeded to explain it all, which is great. But yeah, like Tyler said, it's when your opponents that you've played are playing and having results and all that stuff. It's also, as Tyler and I both do it, a team's power rating is a number, right? It's from 0 to positive infinity or 0 to negative infinity. It's somewhere on that scale. And that means you're above or below the FBS average. And so even if you're not playing, and let's say some of your opponents don't play too, the FBS average is changing because most teams are playing. And so when that happens, everything's kind of working all in unison, and the new quote average settles down at a point. And even if you didn't play, that point now might be a different relative distance away from your team. And that's how you can get a change in a power rating. Even if you didn't play and none of your opponents played, your opponents played and all that stuff. Like, again, guys, this web is deep and it gets connected quickly. But yeah, somebody got after me and I was like, what are we even talking about right now? Like, I just let it go. And like I said, one of the Twitter army took care of it. So it was good.
Yeah. Yeah, I tweeted a message that I got in response to me kind of responding to Desmond Howard going after Ryan Day, and I was like, I love getting fan mail, and the guy called me little man and junior in the same message. I'm like, dude, I'm 6'1", 205. There's nothing little man or junior about me.
That's awesome. I'm gonna start calling you little man now, Tyler.
Yeah, little man. That's me. That is certainly me. Awesome. One matchup from this week, just looking ahead, I don't think we're going to talk about this on the Thursday show. Rutgers and Wisconsin play this week. Wisconsin's like a 2-touchdown favorite, and I'm intrigued by that. I've got that more of like a field goal game. So very, very intrigued by that, just because of how Rutgers has climbed so high in the TSI ratings. So that was just something that jumped out to me that I'm anxious to kind of see how that unfolds here this week.
I don't have it in front of me. I wasn't ready for that. Where is the game, Tyler? Is it at Rutgers or is it in Madison?
That I don't have that in front of me either.
Got it. I'll look it up real quick. I can get you a line. Neutral field, I'd have that about 7.5 points. But I can get a line for that.
Yeah, my assumption at 14.5 points, my assumption is it's at Wisconsin, but still that's still pretty steep considering Wisconsin I don't think has quite looked as good as people, including myself, thought they might. Rutgers looked much better than anyone anticipated. So just that jumped out to me here as I'm looking at our ratings here.
It is at Wisconsin. Last week I would have made that Wisconsin -10. This week it looks like I'm making it Wisconsin. Or sorry, last week it would have been Wisconsin -11. This week it's Wisconsin -10. So the difference between Rutgers upgrade and Wisconsin downgrade, or some combination thereof, changed about a point for me this week. So yeah, I mean, I'd be on you with Rutgers and the points, not quite as much as your model suggesting, but I would be on that side.
Yeah, well, Kelley, any final thoughts here before we wrap up and put a bow on week 5 and get ready to look ahead to week 6?
Not power rating related, but resume ranking related. Dropped those here Monday morning, so those are out. You can see them on the website. You can see them on X. And I got Ole Miss ranked ahead of Alabama. I have Utah ranked ahead of Oregon State. Yes, I know those two teams lost to the teams that I mentioned they are ranked ahead of. Guys, it's not just about head-to-head wins and losses. It's actually not about that at all when it comes to the resume rankings. We're basically looking at how much has a team achieved against its schedule relative to what would be expected of the average top 25 team against that same schedule. So while Alabama and Ole Miss both have 4-1 records and Alabama beat Ole Miss has a more impressive overall resume based on the schedule they played. It'd be more difficult for the average top 25 team to be 4-1 against Ole Miss's schedule than Alabama's. Similarly with Utah and Oregon State, both of them at 4-1. Utah has the better resume at this point. If we get to a point where those teams would be, right next to each other in the most deserving rankings, like separated by one spot, I have no problem if someone wants to say you need to flip those because no other team is impacted. But right now I have Ole Miss number 6 and Alabama's number 11, for example. What are you going to do? You're going to put Alabama all the way up at 6 and just bump everyone else down? Now you're punishing Oklahoma, Washington State, North Carolina, and Georgia, who are in between those two. Or what are you going to do? You're going to take Ole Miss and drop them all the way below Alabama at number 12 then? Well, now you're rewarding Oklahoma, Washington State, North Carolina, Georgia. If they're right next to each other, I'll listen to that conversation, and I don't think it's unreasonable to make a swap. But anytime there's at least one team in between those two, like I'm not doing the head-to-head thing because it's more than about that one game. It's about, to this point, 4 games, 5 games, or in Notre Dame's case, and some other 6 games. And by the end of the year, it'll be about 12 plus conference championships. So had to get out there. I know the people listening to this probably understand it, so I'm preaching to the choir, but that's something that we're recording on Sunday night. I'm assuming by the time this thing drops on Monday, I will have taken some heat for it on X. So there we go.
Yeah, I'm hoping to get my first iteration of my resume rankings out this week as well. I'm still kind of working out some kinks with my formula on that. Just trying to see what makes the most sense because it's not something I've really focused on in the past, obviously from a betting standpoint, but it is something I do want to do. So I'm still working out some kinks with my resume formula. I think I'm pretty close, but I hope to get that out this week. If I don't, I'll try to get it out next week. But I think that's going to do it for this episode. We will be back on Thursday as always. For KFord, I'm Tyler Shoemaker, and that was Calculated Risk.